And we are going to move right into our first panel of the day. It's called Urban Rail, Scaling Up for $180 billion in Projects. And our first speaker is Bryan Pennington. He's the Deputy Chief Program Management Officer at LA Metro here. His career spanned more than 35 years. He has extensive program and construction management experience that has focused on managing large, multidisciplinary teams through all stages of the project lifecycle, from planning to conceptual design and engineering through project commissioning and handover. His career has been predominantly in the transit field, although he has experience in highways and rail projects. He has extensive experience in tunneling in urban context, and he is here today to talk all about LA Metro's projects and everything they have going on after winning the $120 billion local ballot initiative. So that'll fund projects for, I think it's 40 years. So please welcome Bryan.
Good morning. So rumor has it some of you guys were out on the city last night. So I'll try and make this as pain-free as I can for all of us. So let's get into it. So I'm Bryan Pennington, Program Management, Metro. Metro's got an extensive program of highways, transit, and regional rail projects, as Andy said. This morning I'm going to focus mainly on transit, and I've got about 20 slides, so I'll try and go through them as quickly as I can just to keep us on schedule. So, for those of you who live locally and commute by highway, this is what many people are faced with pretty well every day. We are fortunate or unfortunate, whichever way you want to look at it, of having the nation's 11 most congested highways, 11 out of the top 20. So, why is that? Well, the Californian economy is ranked as number 8 in the world. The ports, local ports, Long Beach and LA, carry about 40% of the nation's goods. That's in economic vitality translates into about a 25% projected increase in population. So we really got to continue to develop our transportation system locally. Andy mentioned Measure M. It's a total of about $120 billion. That's the 40-year number. There's actually no sunset on that tax, so the numbers will continue to ramp up. Out of the 120 million, if you take the 40-year number, $22 billion is allocated to highway projects, and about 44 billion, at least 44 billion, to transit, to rail projects. So right now, we have about $15 billion worth of projects underway, and I'm going to go through some of those. And that number will continue to ramp up every year from now on. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide. I think most of you will know a little bit about Metro. We're the third largest transportation system in the nation. We're growing rapidly, and obviously we're going to continue to grow. Presently, we have about 105 miles of rail. That's LRT and subway. It doesn't include commuter rail, and I'll touch on that in a subsequent slide. And that number for the rail, the 105 miles, is set to more than double through the course of Measure M. But before I go on to transit, let's just talk a little bit about regional rail, commuter rail. So this slide shows the Southern California suburban and regional commuter rail system. Metro owns all of the rail right-of-way in LA County. The system goes beyond LA County, but we do own all of the right-of-way in LA County, the central component. We also fund Metrolinx operations, a total budget over 50% of that. So as you can see, of the 8 lines shown on this service plan, 7 of the lines pass through or terminate in Union Station. And Jeanette Owens from Metro will be going through Metro's plans for Union Station, an extensive development, and how that will fit into the surface rail system and how it will connect into the transit system. So I won't go into that much today, but I just wanted to touch on that. And in the backdrop there, you'll see the LRT system and the subway system in gray as well. So here's the existing light rail system, subway system. I won't go through this. Again, anybody here has probably got some knowledge of the system here. So that's the existing system. And on there is shown 3 of the projects that we got underway right now. I'm going to go through those a little later on. That's Crenshaw, LAX project, Regional Rail project, and the Purple Line Westside extension. So that's 105 miles there. So this is what it's going to look like after Measure M. It's pretty good coverage, as you can see. And obviously, why are we doing that? Any regional transportation system needs a good collector and distributor system. The main thrust of the 2 days here is regionally high-speed rail and surface rail. So, but obviously, to take people out of cars, both locally and regionally, we need to provide them with connectivity at the major nodes, and that's what this system is intended to do. So Metro started building about 25 years ago with the blue line and the green line and the red line subway, and as you can see, we're going to continue gradually over the next 20 or 30 years to build out the system as shown here. So we mentioned Measure M. It's probably difficult to see on this slide all the names, but there's about 50 projects here. At the top of the page are all of the transit projects. At the bottom of the page are the highways projects. So this goes back to the 22 billion highways and the 44 billion LRT. And again, I stress, that's only local tax dollars. There'll be a match for those along the way, so those numbers will be even bigger. The green is planning, so you can see there are a fair number of projects still in planning. The red is design, engineering, so you can see we're starting to go into engineering. And the blue is construction. So you'll see some of the projects are already under construction, but you'll see some that we're lining up now as the sort of next phase of construction. So just to make life even more interesting, you will be aware that LA won the Olympics, the 2028 Olympics. So our board, just to make sure that we were completely on our toes, decided to take a filter through the Measure M projects and actually some other projects as well, and they called those the 28 by 28 list. Those are listed here. Some of them I'm going to go through in a second, but the Measure M schedule really dictates when these projects are done in terms of sequence and timing. So we have to maintain that sequence by law. But we are allowed to accelerate the projects. And to do that, we have to source additional funding, other ways of addressing the projects other than just using local funding or taxpayers' dollars. So the 11 projects at the bottom of that list, shown in kind of sort of a yellow color, you'll see there's a difference between the present target date, the Measure M date, and the aspirational date. Those are aspirational acceleration dates. And again, I'm going to touch on a couple of those projects in a minute. So let's talk about the projects that are underway. So this is the Crenshaw LAX project. It's actually about 80% complete. It will open in October 2019. You'll see there it's depicted in yellow. It connects, presently aimed to connect the Expo line, which is shown in orange, down to the green line, which is obviously shown in green. Over time, through Measure M, it will be extended, the Crenshaw line will be extended further north. It'll connect first of all, to the purple line, and then ultimately to the red line as part of the build-out of the overall network. As part of the overall connectivity, you'll see LAX shown there just on the left-hand side of the slide. We will be adding an additional station there, and again, you'll see that on a later slide. and that will connect to a people mover which will access the station from the Crenshaw line. Regional connector, Curbed LA recently called this project the most exciting project underway in LA right now. We have a lot of exciting projects, so this one is definitely one of those. You can see all the statistics there. I'm not going to go through them. Regional connector is reaching or approaching 50% completion. It's scheduled to be complete by 2021. Regional connector is known as a game changer. You'll see here why it's a game changer. What it does is it takes 4 legs of the LRT system and it joins them through downtown, so that now you can travel from north to south and east to west, and obviously connect in the middle in downtown and connect into the rest of the system. It'll save about 20 minutes for anybody accessing downtown or going through downtown. So that's quite a major change, a major improvement for people's commute at each end of the day. So last of the major projects underway right now is the Westside Purple Line. It's 9 miles long, approximately $9 billion. We're doing it in 3 segments. I'll go through those very quickly now. But you can see on the right-hand side of the slide there, it almost connects up on the slide to Union Station. It does connect up to Union Station in real life, and ultimately it will go out to UCLA, which is one of the main Olympic sites. Oops, go back. So here's the first segment, first section's underway. It's about a third complete. We're just about to start tunneling in the next couple of months. This will be complete by 2023. Second section is also underway. Utility work's underway, design work's underway. Construction will start probably the end of this year, maybe beginning of next year, due to be finished by 2025. And the last section, which takes us out past the university to the terminus. This project is presently under procurement, subject to finding a match from our federal partners. This project will be complete in 2026. A couple of years in advance of the Olympics. That's why it's on the 20 by 28 list. So that's the projects, the major projects underway. There are actually a lot more. We have about 150 plus projects right now under construction, which forms the $15 billion. So here's the next phase of Measure M. I picked out a few projects here. I'll go through each one of them fairly quickly. But again, you'll see the color coding here. The green is planning, so we're in the environmental process on those that are shown as green. And then next section, next phase is a design, and then on into the blue, which is the construction. So that gives you a feel for what's coming up next. And again, it all fits into the Measure M long-term network. Airport Metro Connector, I've touched on. It's on the Crenshaw LAX line. It is a new station we're adding after the fact. So we're protecting for that work right now. The design's about 30% complete, and you can see there the construction will start in mid-2020. We're matching our schedule with the airport authority's schedule for their people mover, which you can see almost on the skyline there, running from left to right on the left-hand side of the page. So you can see some major multimodal interchange. And obviously that's the gateway, one of the gateways into and from LAX Airport. Foothills Gold Line, out to the north and the east side. Actually, this last extension will take us into San Bernardino County. Utility work is underway right now. And again, you can see there, the mainline contract award will be the end of this year. So that's probably the final extension, certainly under Measure M of that piece of the Gold Line. So Division 20 actually isn't a Measure M project, but it is nevertheless a key project If you look south from this building, if you go outside and have a cigarette, you can see where Metro's subway yard is. It's called Division 20 internally. To meet the headways that we require for the extension of the Westside Purple Line, we need to build out our storage capacity, we need to improve our turnback, and ultimately protect for extending the subway at surface further south. That's not presently part of Measure M. So we're looking to increase the headways or reduce the headways, whichever way you want to look at it, to 2-minute headways on the core and 4 minutes on each of the legs. That's the red line and the purple line leg. So great increase in capacity for the future there. So again, final design's underway. It will be complete before the end of this year, and the construction will then start early next year. And that'll be complete by about 2021. East San Fernando Transit Corridor, presently under environmental process, coming towards an end. We'll go to our board in the next couple of months. It's looking like it's going to be LRT, so that runs north-south through San Fernando Valley. It connects to the Orange Line. Actually, Orange Line is part of Measure M. It's underway right now. I didn't include it in this presentation. If I'd included all the projects, I'd probably take the full day and you guys would be well and truly asleep. But nevertheless, Orange Line is BRT. We are grade separating the BRT because it's been so successful. We're getting LRT type ridership, so we want to maintain that momentum and increase the ridership. And as part of Measure M, ultimately, the Orange Line will be converted into LRT, but that's in a later phase. So again, we'll continue to build out the network and providing the interconnectivity to provide that coverage you saw on the slide that's just full of colors. So on this one, again, coming to the end of the environmental process, design is just about to start, and construction will begin 2022. So enough with that. West Santa Ana. So I talked about 28 by 28. I talked about the aspirational dates on the 2028 list there, the bottom 11. West Santa Ana is one of those. And I'll also touch on unsolicited proposals later on as well. This is also partly not a result of the West Santa of unsolicited proposals. It always has been part of Measure M. But on Measure M, it's shown as been done in 2 phases, and the community really wanted it done in 1. So I mentioned that under Measure M, there's a constraint on the timelines in terms of the actual timing and in terms of the sequence. So we are locked in by that. The only way that we can change that is by obtaining input from the private sector in terms of resources, in terms of potentially funding. So this is a potential P3. Right now we're going through and developing the P3 approach, and we're also going through the environmental process as well. The alignment in the south end is pretty clear. Up in the north end, as it comes into downtown, it's not entirely clear, and so we're looking at options there right now. They'll come forward to our board probably May this year. And this axis is a part of the city that really is Metro hasn't covered previously, so it's another game changer in terms of the city and the coverage. So I talked about unsolicited proposals. So this initiative was started a couple of years ago. It's been, I think, very successful, and it's got even more possibilities. But you'll see here we've received 105 proposals. These sort of range from very, very small projects, consulting activities, right up to the major infrastructure projects. And the West Santa Ana project was one you'll see on the list in a second. So you can see if you go down through the filtering process, right now we've got about 12 which are got through the process. There's a lot more still underway, but 12 have got not quite to the end, but close to the end. And so here's some of the lists that we've adopted, and you'll see that I'll only go through the top 3. So Sepulveda Pass. we completed an expansion of the 405 highway through the Sepulveda Pass, through the San Fernando Valley a couple of years ago. We added an extra lane, and hardly was that done, and there's so much inbuilt capacity in that area that 405 is starting to build back up again to capacity. So in the long term, we have to do something additional in Sepulveda Pass. So this is one where we've received a number of unsolicited proposals. So we have decided to progress that as a potential P3. We're not entirely sure what form that will take. We're not entirely sure what the technology will be, but that process has started and will continue. There's clearly a great need there to accelerate that project. And again, that comes back to these aspirational dates. West Santa Ana I've touched on, and also the third major project that came out of the unsolicited process that we're turning into a potential P3 is the express lanes and unlocking the income from those and turning that actually back into expanding the system. So it's kind of sort of a win-win if we can make that work. So I don't propose to go through the rest, and that's the end of the presentation. Again, if I covered all of the projects, we would have been here quite a while. So I've got some time for questions if anybody has any. That's a great question. If you think back to the Measure M schedule slide, the master slide I showed you, you'll see that cascading effect of the projects. That goes on over sort of 30 years. But again, if you go right back to the beginning of the presentation and remember that traffic, the reason that there was so much support locally for Measure M, I mean, think about this. In North America, a committee voting for the sales tax measure, voting for it over 70%, it's because of the congestion. The committee wants us to get something done. They want us to get it done quickly. And so part of doing that is we're constrained by the amount of sales tax that comes in. So that really stretches out the schedule. So the committee wants us to look at anything we can do to do things more quickly. So that's what the P3 allows us to do. It allows us to do the projects earlier than they're shown on the Measure M project. And so that doesn't really play into the issue of the sales tax measure. Again, we're leveraging that in all sorts of different ways. The community want to see things happen. Again, if you go for a cigarette, and maybe you did yesterday, and look to the south, 101 is just south of here, you'll see on a regular basis that's just jammed. And that's only one. Okay. Please. There is a component there. Union Station is actually not part of the total project. You see, it's not on the it's on the Measure M list, but it's not at the same level of development as some of the other projects. So yes, it is, and no, it isn't. When Jeanette talks to you this afternoon, she'll explain to you where we are with the funding of that project, we are not sure. There's always a possibility we may turn that one into a P3 as well. Certainly, it's a major node. It really needs to get done. It's got so many possibilities. And again, I won't go into it. I won't steal Jeanette's thunder, but you'll see that later on this afternoon. Sorry. Yeah. So, let me answer that this way. Each project has been looked at differently. It's been looked at on its own merits. Of course, we all know I spend my time in the private sector. On the public sector, a lot of people think about getting the money into the project. They don't necessarily think quickly or early about how the private sector would get the money back out. So that's part of the process we've gone through. We treat the P3s like a procurement. So we look to the private sector to tell us how they think it will work financially. So that can be done in a number of different means, and it depends, again, on each application. For instance, I've got the slide up here. We could all understand that a P3 on the express lanes might have a different financial profile to the one above it, which is West Santa Ana. So we need to look at each one. And so we're looking to the private sector, and that's why we did the unsolicited proposal process. The private sector got a lot more experience than a lot of the people in our organization, although we got some really good skill sets here. But it's really for them to tell us how they see it working. Okay? So we're very flexible. It varies a lot. That's a dangerous thing to throw numbers out on a. I got caught that way before. But I'll talk to you later on if you like. Yeah. Oh, please.
You mentioned part of the extension east, San Bernardino County. Is there some type of design or plan relative to Metrolink folding into the overall program? I realize 50% of their operation revenue comes from LA County. It just seems like we're going to start paralleling pretty soon from a commuter standpoint.
Do you work for Metrolink by any chance?
I do not, but I wrote it in this morning.
I'm joking. That's a great question. So right now, Metrolink is formed, or SCCRA is formed by the counties. JPA is formed by the counties. LA County being one of those. Obviously, as you saw, pretty well all the lines come into LA County, come into Union Station, so Metro are a major player in that. I'm not sure what the answer is. There's certainly, we're starting to get some, for want of a better phrase, overlap between the Gold Line and the Metrolink San Bernardino line. We're working through that right now. We have a study underway. One of those will be looking at relative fares, things like that. Whether or not there'll be an amalgamation, I think that was where your question was heading. I don't know. There have been some discussions about Metrolink being folded into Metro in the past. Before my time, I suppose there's always a chance that those discussions will start again. But there are pros and cons, of course. Maybe that's a simple way to finish the answer off. Okay, it looks like we're done. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.